the Industrial Revolution really did a lot of destruction. Modern society has that vacuum that it's not able to, it isn't able to fill, and work toward the Christianization of all society, where we don't want to just have our little ghetto in the area, and we want to see the reign of Christ, the kingship of Christ in the modern world.
Today, I am joined by Mr. John Horvat, Vice-President of the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family and Property, the TFP. You are a scholar, researcher, and author of the book Return to Order, From a Frenzied Economy to an Organic Christian Society. John Horvat, thank you very much for coming on the channel.
It's great to be on. Always great.
The first question I'd like to ask you is about your journey of faith. Were you born into the Catholic faith?
Yes, I was. Both my parents were Catholic. I am originally from the Kansas City, Kansas, which is in the middle part of the United States. And yes, I grew up Catholic, went to a Catholic grade school. I went to public school for the high school and I had 2 years of university at the University of Kansas.
And you are now the Vice President of the American TFP. So maybe could you explain to our viewers what this organization is?
The American TFP, Tradition, Family, Property, we're a civic organization of Catholic inspiration. And we defend tradition, family, property against what we call the revolution. Our organization is based on the book Revolution and Counter-Revolution by Professor Plinio de Oliveira. And he defines the historic processes that have taken place over the centuries to destroy Christian civilization. So we are an organization that wants to restore Christian civilization. And we do this through books, publications, activism on the streets, all sorts of activities and youth activities, university activities that promote this ideal.
And did you know Dr. Plinio personally?
I did, yes. I joined the TFP directly out of college, so I've been with the TFP almost 50 years, so it's been a long time. And so I did have a relationship with him. I went many times to Brazil. And at a certain point in 1986, he formed a commission of Americans to study American topics. And I was on that commission. And so he held over around 90 to 100 meetings on American topics, American economy, American way of life, a study of that. We read books, we put together essays and outlines. So during that time, I didn't go to all 90 meetings, but I did go to a lot of those meetings, and so I had a very a strong relationship with him.
So the TFP was born in Brazil, right? And then it went to the United States. Is it elsewhere in the world?
Yes, we are present in something like 25 different countries in one way or the other where we exist. So the United States, a lot South America, a lot in South America, Europe, we have a strong presence, South Africa, Australia, Philippines. So yeah, we exist around the world. We have a very strong organization in the United States.
And so, as you say, you're working in the United States. So can you witness a major difference in your commitment and actions between Joe Biden's term and Donald Trump's recently?
That's maybe so, yes. I mean, we are not a partisan organization, so that we don't get involved in Democrat, Republican politics, but we do get involved in the ideas and principles that are very much that underline a lot of the underline these politics. The cultural war, obviously, we're involved in. So definitely there has been a shift, let's say, from the President Biden's term to this term. But there's still a big battle going ahead. I mean, the cultural war is very ingrained, and even in conservative circles, we have problems. So we need to be very active, regardless.
Even beyond the election system.
Yes, so absolutely, because the culture I think, is much more important than the actual politics. Although politics are important, the culture is where a lot of this battle is taking place.
Sure. And many young Americans are converting to Catholicism today, even many young French people.
Yeah.
Is it a phenomenon you can witness on the American campuses and areas that you visit?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I go to a lot of conferences, and I was just recently at a conference in Steubenville, which is a university in the United States, a Catholic Franciscan university. And I was impressed by the number of young people that went to this particular conference. I went to the Adoration Chapel, and there were young men there. I went to Mass, and I looked at the communion line, and there were 20 young men on that communion line. So I said, and they weren't, they were not with their parents; they were coming on their own. So, I mean, it's very, very evident that something is going on here. And of course, everyone likes to quote the idea that there are more young men attending church than there are young women now. And so there's definitely something going on, and I think it is very profound.
And is it visible in your members as well in the TFP? Are there many converts?
That's a good question. A lot of the people who who joined the TFP, most of them are Catholics, were born Catholics or became, but we do have some converts, but let's say not huge numbers.
Right.
I think largely because we target Catholics as such, and so the convert segment is not nearly as well developed as the Catholic one. So we do, but we're very open to having a lot of converts. We certainly would welcome them very much.
Your book, Return to Order, has become a reference in Christian dissent. Could you maybe summarize your analysis of the degradation of Western economy, which you call a frenetic intemperance?
Yes. Yeah, the book Return to Order, as I mentioned, it is a product of that American commission that was headed by Professor Plinio Oliveira. And he wanted a book like this. He said, this is what we need to do. We didn't do it in his lifetime, but only afterwards. So the book was written it started to be written in 2008, especially after the subprime mortgage crisis, and it was finished in 2013. And so the book is a summary of what went wrong with the American economy, with the world economy now, is that from the Industrial Revolution on, the economy has been ruled by what I call frenetic intemperance, which is this urge to have everything now instantly, regardless of the consequences, and of course destroying a lot of the Catholic culture that was in the way. This Catholic culture actually sustains economy, but in this particular case, it is something that holds it back, and this frenetic intemperance does not want to be held back. So I narrow the problems of the economy to this particular sector, not the whole free market economy, because it can be very healthy and is very healthy in a lot of places. So I do try to narrow it down to this particular field and saying, well, that the solution to this frenetic intemperance is a corresponding temperance, which is based on Catholic teachings and Catholic teachings on the economy, which are surprisingly amazing. Some of the things that you see that when you do research on what the church has to say.
Is the Industrial Revolution a major shift from the organic society to the rule of intemperance? It's coming from Europe, but do you think the shift happens there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we saw this from the late 19th century, the 20th century, where an agrarian society essentially became an industrial society in all the major developed countries. So yes, the Industrial Revolution, of course, this frenetic intemperance, I think you can trace it back to even Renaissance times, but it was never a dominant factor in the economy until the 19th century or even the 18th century, 18th, 19th century, where it started to dominate and change the structures of society, the demographics, where people lived, how they lived. So yes, I think it definitely had an adverse effect on on society and even on the church. That's how we worship. It definitely changed the mentality of a lot of people.
Exactly. Yeah. So the shift, the degradation is not only economic, but it's also moral and sociological. Is there a correlation? Well, what correlation can we have between the economy and that?
Well, definitely there is, because an organic society is a society that's very much according to our nature. It is something that allows for the practice of virtue, and it also is a sacral society. It takes into consideration, it integrates the spiritual with the material, and not only and therefore uplifts the whole of society. And so, in this sense, the Industrial Revolution really did a lot of destruction. It turned us into materialistic, individualistic, liberal. Liberalism is largely based on this kind of this idea.
The TFP is well known for its pro-life commitments. What is your reaction to the recent constitutionalization of abortion in France last year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that was a surprise, so to speak. I didn't expect it to go that far. I mean, it's the first country to do that, and it is definitely. I mean, it is horrible. And I mean, I think we still need to fight against it. And you say, well, it's in the Constitution; it can't be changed. But abortion was not quite enshrined in our Constitution, but it was recognized as a constitutional right because of Roe v. Wade and the Supreme Court decision. And it was overturned after 50 years. I mean, and nobody ever thought that it would be overturned. So, I mean, I think we have to continue the fight, and it can be done. And I think that was largely much more due to the prayers at the adoration chapels and the rosaries in front of abortion clinics than due to the politicians that changed, with the wind.
The constitutionalization doesn't close the debate, right?
No, I don't think so. I think it can be overturned, and Roe v. Wade is the proof, and it's still continuing. There's a lot of developments here now to try to even go farther than that. They want to overturn Obergefell, which is the same-sex marriage decision, and it's getting quite a lot of getting a lot of traction and going forward ahead. There's several state legislatures who have recommended it or passed resolutions calling for it. So it can be done.
On the other hand, in France, we have also laws on euthanasia, which are being passed this year. Right. What would you say to young nurses and doctors who are about to get involved in their field and will have to face these dilemmas?
Well, I mean, you definitely have to face it. I mean, you can't go along with it. It's not moral to be an accomplice with that. I don't know the details of the law. I don't know if there are any exceptions or any type of conscious clauses, but even then, the only real solution is to overturn those decisions. Exemptions are not the solution. It's something that is helpful, but it is only a stopgap measure until all society has to follow the moral code.
In your book, you write that our socio-economic model should return to the wellspring. What are some of the concrete tracks that you offer to achieve that?
Yes, the wellspring of our economy and of our society is Christianity and Christendom. That it is a lot of it is based a lot upon institutions and social institutions rather than individualistic solutions. So it would be a change of mentality from the point of view of this individualistic society we have now to something that is more social and considers the common good. It would also be on the line of leadership, strong leaderships that are very important, and role models that draw people and get people to do things. That people have a problem saying, well, you have all these solutions and you want to force them on people and want to legislate morality and this kind of thing. But in a society where you have role models and virtuous people, people do this more easily and desire to practice virtue. And I think that's a much better way of going about it than just simply saying we're going to force people to practice virtue, because really the only place where you force people to practice virtue is a prison, not a real society.
What you're saying about role models is very interesting. Society is defined about how they choose its heroes. Beyond the saints, do you have other names maybe which come to your mind as to these role models?
Yeah, it's amazing. The sociologists have names for these people, and they call them representative characters. And they say that all societies have representative characters. There are people inside inside the structures of society that perceive where society wants to go and make a plan for those things to take place. And so representative characters still exist today, but they're often hidden. You know, they are people who sacrifice for the common good. They can be businessmen, they can be military, they can be sometimes politicians, not always, but they academics, people are academics. I mean, we could point to our own. I can point to American figures, you know, so people that you may not know. But I remember once when I was at a book fair selling the book Return to Order, and a man came up to me and says, "I read your book, and I know about representative characters." And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Well, yes." And I asked who he was. He says, "Well, I'm the governor of Kansas, so and I'm from Kansas. I naturally had a certain affinity." He says, I go throughout the whole state and I see these representative characters everywhere. They're the people who run our society, and they're the ones that we need to support." So I think that is part of the problem. We need to we recognize these representative characters. The egalitarian metaphysics of modern society certainly discourages that, but these people do exist. They are there, and we need to encourage these people and encourage young people to say, "Well, you need to be representative characters. We're not just looking for them to say, well, let's go follow them. We actually want you to be these representative characters in the fields in which you are involved."
It can be linked as well with the communion of saints and the families of souls, maybe that we can find in the church.
Definitely. Yeah, the church is a very important part of this idea of the representative characters. I mean, in the book, as you probably saw, I make a reference to feudalism, because feudalism was somehow a type of relationship that existed between people and leaderships on all levels of society, not just in the higher levels, but all levels of society, in which everyone came together for the common good in their particular communities. And you know, I think this is a valid relationship, and I've been surprised that nobody's ever contested that. I mean, it is described very well by sociologists, but not with that name.
And have you witnessed such organic societies based on that model in in the United States, maybe in parishes or in villages, small towns?
It does exist. Yeah, it definitely does exist. I will find those return to order moments, you know, all of a sudden find them myself in the midst of them. But again, it's the culture, the pop culture is very much against it. It doesn't really like to recognize that. It's the individualism, the liberalism, all these kind of things are conspire against this becoming something's very well known. But it definitely does exist. You meet people you say, well, this person's a representative character. He's fulfilling his role that it would exist in a organic Christian society.
All right. And before we leave, do you have some general advice to young Catholics who are willing to return to the wellspring and live a coherent life in this world?
Well, definitely. I mean, as you said, there are a lot of young people doing this. They are looking for these things because modern society has that vacuum that it isn't able to fill. And so I would say to pursue this, but not to be complacent in your pursuit of these goals. to engage in the fight, always engage in the fight, and not to just say, well, I will find my own little place. The Benedict option things that they're so often cited. I always like to say that the first person who would be against the Benedict option would be Saint Benedict himself, because he was not a Benedict option person. He actually went into society, destroyed idols. He was very involved with the places around him. So I think we need to be the same. We need to be involved in those in society, and work toward the Christianization of all society, where we don't want to just have our little ghetto in the area, and we want to be part of. We want to see the reign of Christ, the kingship of Christ in the modern world.
Absolutely. Sir, thank you very much for your time and for this interview.
It's been great. Very, very great.
Thank you. Bye.